Okay, got a few hours to kill before the big game. What does every English rugby fan do when they have a spare 20 minutes to 1 hour? Oh yeah, there's the good stuff.
And he has it.
Hello?
Right, man. Is this Rugby Illuminati?
Speaking.
Oh, yeah, hi. I wanted you to watch the All Blacks versus the Boks on Saturday night. It's a big game, and Rassie has put me on the bench with this new kid on the block, Sacha. The way everyone talks about him, you'd think he pisses silver, man. Don't get me wrong, he's a hell of a player, and I'm happy for him, but I want someone to get some eyes on him in his first real test as a Bok. There's just so much hype, and I just want to know how he performs from up there on the TV screen, eh?
Yeah, no worries. I'm on it for you. I'll watch it and I'll give some analysis later. Alright, just stay tuned to the channel.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, alright, enjoy yourself, and have a beer on me, eh?
Yeah, will do, Andre, will do.
Oh, yeah, and take those dumb glasses off, and clear the clothes off the sofa behind you, man. You're meant to be a professional YouTuber. You can't even tidy your bedroom. It looks ridiculous.
Alright, thanks, Andre. Okay. But not even my goddamn clothes. Well, we all go through phases, don't we?
He's all New Zealand for so much of the opening quarter of the game. But the Springboks have found a way to get the job done.
Wow, what a game. And if you ask me personally, I feel like New Zealand, they let it go. They probably should have won that game. And New Zealand of the past probably would have put the game away. Feels weird addressing the camera without glasses now. Feels like you're staring into my soul. Anyway, let's start from the beginning. The beginning of the game that sets off a quick pace and it's excellent. We have a try either side, both coming off of mauls. Really set the tone for the rest of the game. Really exciting. And I think you could probably argue that both tries could have been disallowed and therefore, you know, they kind of cancel each other out and they go for one. I'm sure if you're a South African fan on that first try, I think you're probably calling a truck and trailer on there. The New Zealand maul does break out from outside of the original maul and just has New Zealand players, and it would be obstruction. And obviously the more obvious non-try was the hooker for South Africa knocking the ball on, going over the try line. So I think for context, I don't think you're going to be... I think if you're either team, you're not really going to be arguing too much because both of them could have been disallowed, but both of them were allowed in the end. And I think it just kind of cancels each other out. So if we've got fans in here thinking that that was the difference in the game, I really don't think so. That was a moment in time where like both teams kind of got away with one there. I felt like both teams early on had no competition at the line out, and then later on in the game, kind of probably like the 30-35 minute mark, line outs started to become more competitive. The only team to actually lose line outs from what I can see though was South Africa, who lost 3 in the second half. Scrum wise, everyone won their own scrums and South Africa won 1 penalty at the scrum. That penalty in the scrum came in the first half, and I definitely thought that this was maybe a precursor to how New Zealand could get dominated into the second half. Granted that seemed like it was the scrum was just starting to crack a little bit under pressure. I think we really saw the best of both teams in the first half. We saw New Zealand really great execution and doing the bits that they hadn't done well since the takeover of Razor. I'm talking about doing the basics right and also really solid execution when the opportunity arises. There weren't many opportunities there, but when they were there, they took them and they took them so well. I'm thinking of that turnover ball with the knock on and then Mackenzie gets it out, but he does the dummy just to get the interceptor out of the way. It was so cool, calm under pressure, and it felt like New Zealand did that in the real opportune times of the game. And I felt like they took the opportunities that were the few opportunities that were there when you're playing a South Africa side. When you're playing a South Africa side, defensively, you know you're going to be running up against a brick wall no matter who you are, right? You're going to have long periods where you'll build multiple phases. And if you're good, you'll build multiple phases. You won't turn the ball over, but sometimes you're just not going to go anywhere. New Zealand did an excellent job of staying patient. They realised when the opportunities were there and when they weren't, and they took them. And, you know, when you score 27 points against the South African side, you know, and you don't win, it feels like a blown opportunity because it's very rare that South Africa give away those 27 points. The interception, I thought, by Geordie Barrett was obviously a read that they'd done homework at home, and they had read that off of first phase ball, they want to get the ball to see Kolisi from the attacking line, and he just read it perfectly and he went for it. The South Africa's defence was just sensational. Allende, I think, has to have a special shout out because I counted at least 2 or 3 times he had turnovers in defence with jackals on balls, which was really impressive. I think the tackling in general was ferocious. Defensively, there wasn't much more you could ask of South Africa. They just found themselves in positions where it was impossible to defend, aka they make a mistake in attack and there's not people outside, aka it's a line out, it's condensed, and therefore the space is all outside because New Zealand committed all of their men into that line out. So it was New Zealand taking the opportunities that were there. On the other side of things, in South Africa's attack, Sacha. The intro, I know it was recorded before the game, and there was a lot of questions for me about Sacha. We've seen flashes of brilliance in these first two games in the Rugby Championship, and now we're looking to see, as a real test against New Zealand, how does he look? Can he build the phases? Can he play good fly half play? Is he more than just like flair, flash? And I think he more than answered the questions today. And I think my prediction of 3 different fly halves starting for South Africa in this championship might be slightly at risk because, his decision-making was on point. He knew when to counter-attack. He knew when the opportunities were there. And you can tell that South Africa also have plans just to kind of get him into the game as much as possible and give him as many opportunities with the ball in hand because they know he's the difference maker. You'll notice there were 2 lineouts in the first half. One where South Africa actually recovered it. Like they did a throw to the back the line out, and then the line out pop was a little bit janky, but they popped it back to Sacha, who was taking an inside line, like inside of the line out, to try and take opportunities of players that were maybe being lackadaisical on the blind side. There was another line out as well where they just missed everybody in the line out and they went straight to Sacha in the middle of the pitch. So he's basically in open space and he can make a decision of what he wants to do. It's clear that South Africa recognise this is their key player. This is their player that can make things happen, like can just create something out of nothing, and he can open up space for everybody else around him on the pitch. And he did very, very well. He took command of the game. He played excellent at 10. I don't think there's any questions for me that, you know, you got to ride with this guy now for, I think you give him 2-3 games that if he doesn't play well at all, like he has bad games, maybe change him. But I feel like he's kind of earning that 10 shirt, and you want to put him in a position where he's comfortable, he's secure, that 10 shirt is his. He certainly deserved it. I mean, his counter-attacking was sensational. Everything about it was just great to watch. I think Fassi at fullback, inexperienced guy. Again, great game. Decision-making, perfect. You know he's got the skill set there. You know he's got the speed, and you know he's got the attacking brain to get into the opportunities that are there. The concern that you have with the guy that's slightly younger, is that maybe he does it too often. Overplays a hand that he has in terms of his speed and ability to counter-attack. Not today. He knew when to kick, he knew when to run, he knew when to distribute and counter-attack. And it's really kind of building into this personality that South Africa are now turning into post-World Cup. And I think it's with players that you have like Sacha and also with Fassi, but you know, I think it changes the whole team and how they play, that South Africa are now turning into this real dangerous counter-attacking team. South Africa, you would think in the past, we're probably thinking way in the past, we're thinking like before Manny Libbok. South Africa are typically stout defence and play rugby in the right areas of the pitch, right? Play for territory and prey on the mistakes of opponents. Now, they're more willing to play in their own half because when they take opportunities that are there in counter-attack, aka like a knock-on happens or a missed line-out, they have the players now that they can counter-attack anywhere on the pitch. You now also don't want to be caught in a kick tennis game with South Africa because they can counter-attack anywhere on the pitch. Like, it's revolutionary in terms of how they're playing. It's very, very different. I think the sad thing is that it's linchpinned on Sacha being in the team and also having a few other backs that are of similar caliber. And if you don't have those, then that game is just not possible. But it is very, very cool to see. And it really just elevates elevates South Africa to another level of world dominance. And I think for me, after this game and seeing this performance, we'll see what happens next week. But South Africa are the best team in the world. I think I'm comfortable saying that. I usually put asterisks on saying things like this by saying the other kind of elite teams in there. But I really think when you come down to knockout rugby, you want to pick one team that's going to win. I think South Africa are better. True, yes, they lost against Ireland in that test series not too long ago. But right now, they are just the team. They are in form. They have an ability to just play what's in front of them, real loose rugby, and it's amazing to see. And it's hard to see anybody beating them at this stage. I don't think Sacha really played in those Ireland games. Correct me if I'm wrong. He wasn't really there. If you put him in now, you play Ireland, South Africa now, is it a different story? I don't know. I think Ireland are probably the team that give South Africa the most trouble. However, I don't know. I think I'm still picking South Africa in that regard. I kind of touched on it, I think, a little bit in my head anyway, that we got caught into kick tennis and South Africa took advantage of that with their countering attack ability. And this kind of leads me on to what I said at the original start of the review of the game. I think New Zealand threw the game away. And again, in videos that I've said previously, I'm seeing more and more parallels between when Razor has taken over New Zealand from when Borthwick first took over England. There's so many parallels. And again, we're seeing this example of domestic rugby not translating over to international rugby. What do I mean by that? New Zealand, in the first half, executed excellently. They did the basics right. They took the opportunities that they had. And then Geordie Barrett scores in the second half. And you think, this is the New Zealand of old. Do you think they take the foot off the gas and they kick for territory and they play the territorial game? Or do you think they're just going to go, it's 0-0, boys. It's 0-0. We've got to play possession. We've got to play aggressively. We've got to score some more tries. I don't think today's team did that. I think they let the foot off the gas pedal. I think they were much more willing to give the ball back to South Africa. And I think ultimately this led to South Africa coming back and attacking in New Zealand's half, which they'd done multiple times. And New Zealand, multiple times, had given away penalties. And eventually, it was just one penalty too far. New Zealand gave away 6 penalties in the first half, and they gave away 8 penalties in the second half. South Africa, on the other hand, gave away 2 penalties in the first half and 3 penalties in the second half. By my counting, I might miss 1 or 2. The specific numbers are not what's important. What's important is those numbers. I counted when we were at 3 penalties out of 8 into the second half. So that's a total of, from what I count, 9 penalties. That was when the referee started warning New Zealand. They were all penalties that were fairly similar. They were in defence, getting caught on the wrong side of the ball, coming in an offside position for counter-rucking. So you're already adding this pressure and this narrative in the referee's head of like, they're killing the game. It's not good news. Needs to do something about it. And then eventually when you're starting to kick possession away and you're allowing the team to counter-attack and you do that one more time, what happens? Yellow card. So it was kind of a problem that I think they shouldn't have created for themselves in the first place. These penalties, I think a lot of them were avoidable. But they compounded the issue by putting themselves in a defensive position. If you counted that to what I think New Zealand would normally do in this position, being in the lead by a 2-score lead, I believed it was like 8 points at one point, may have been more, you would expect them to just keep attacking. And if you're attacking, you're less likely to give penalties away. And if you give a penalty away, even in attack, it's not related to what you were doing in defence before. It just doesn't play into how... It plays into what they're trying to do is sit on a game and just let the opposition make mistakes. And at international level, like Borthwick learned that against Scotland in one of the first games that he took over, you can't do that international level. Look at the back three that South Africa have. Never mind fly half. You got Fassi in there, who played excellently. You got Cheslin, Kolbe, and you got Kriel and Arendse, who came off for a HIA, granted, but you got Jesse Kriel that then fills in on that wing spot, who, you know, I've never seen Jesse Kriel play wing before, but in the few opportunities he had with the ball on the outside, I mean, I think you sometimes forget how quick he is, right? But anyway, you can't play territory, you can't kick it back, you can't give it to these players in space. You kick it long, you then chase the ball. You're giving these players like Kolbe, etc., you're giving them like 10 or 15 yards of space before they're even touched by another man. You saw it with Fassi. He made a break and he grubbed it to Kolbe and they almost scored that way. Fassi made another break a bit like literally 10 minutes later. Like, no, hit the accelerator. You got to keep attacking. In international rugby, the ball is safest in your own hands. You're not South Africa. Like, they're the one team that can just trust in their defence to just see them over the line. New Zealand are not that, okay? You could say a lot for their defence today. I thought it was really good, except from the penalties, as I've already said. But they're not South Africa, and they're the only team, South Africa, that can play that type of game. No one else can do it. The ball is safer in your hands. You want to stick with momentum, keep playing the phases. Even if you're playing the phases and you're getting over like 1 metre gain line every time, at least you know that the ball's in your hands. Work your way into the opposition half. If you're in the opposition half, fine, grubber it into the corner. You stick the opposition in the corner, they're not going anywhere, right? But when you're in your own 22 or like your own half, like, and there's an opportunity to run it back after you've just had a kick back to yourself, don't just kick it back, man. Let's have some counter-attacking. I mean, look at the back three that you have, right? You have Barrett, Jordan, and Caleb Clark, who I thought, again, excellent game. 2 scores today. He was really, really good. He saw spaces that like nobody else saw on the pitch, so great game for him. The bomb squad coming in at 45 minutes. So this is something I've noticed that South Africa tend to do only against New Zealand, or when they're losing games in general. I think they did it in the England game in the semi-final, and it almost seems like a panic move to me. Like, it feels like, oh, we're losing, just get the players on, get the players on. Like, everyone literally came on straight away. But the more I think about it, and the more times I see it, like, because it's happened now 3 or 4 times where I think South Africa have been behind and they just bring the bomb squad on at 45 minutes. And every single time, because I write it in my notes, every single time I just know that I write, like, is this a panic situation? But it's happened so many times now, and I've written that so many times now, like, you know, Razzie's playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. So thinking out loud a little bit of why he's doing this, like, if you've got players that are, like, obviously top athletes and you've got them coming on at 45 minutes, you've given them the most opportunity to have that tiredness of the opposition that your players don't have to make a difference. For example, like, you take Scott Barrett, plays full 80 minutes. By the time he's at 45 minutes, he's already racked up 45 minutes. And if you bring on people at that 45 minutes, then it means that you've got 35 minutes of your own players that are fresh, rather than like the last 20 that you would usually do if the game is much tighter. So I don't know if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is that the quicker that you get the bomb squad on, the more opportunity you have for fresher legs to make a bigger difference, even though it might make those fresher legs more tired for like preceding fixtures. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. I'll talk to you in the comments about what I mean. Hopefully I'll describe it a little bit better. I think it just gives you more of a chance for the bomb squad to make a difference. And I also thought, I was like, Nche is coming off here. Nche looks dominant. Frans is coming off here. Frans looks dominant. Well, actually, no, I don't think Frans looked dominant. I thought he was competitive against Tamiti Williams, but Nche was definitely dominant, like, for sure. And you're bringing him off and you're just thinking, you've had only 1 penalty at the scrum. You look dominant there. Like, you just kind of grind out a couple more of those. But they decided not to do that. And then there was also, like, you know, Arendse comes off for his HIA. He doesn't come back because he got knocked the f*** out, like nobody's business. And then Pollard comes on and you've got 2 fly halves on and you're just thinking, is this the bomb squad starting to crumble a little bit? But, you know, it didn't. So this bomb squad thing, it seems to be so resilient, even though on paper it looks like it just takes a couple of backs injuries for it to go badly. I guess these South African backs are probably like more versatile than we know, because, you know, I talked about Jesse Kriel just filling into that winger shirt like nobody's business. He just straight in slotted in there. And it was no difference whatsoever. I have never seen him play winger before. Maybe he has at club level, let me know. But yeah, maybe, you know, Pollard playing 12, not seen that before, fitted in well, it was fine. So I don't know. Maybe they're all trained to do stuff like that. I mean, I remember last week we saw Kolbe doing stuff that a hooker does. So, you know, they're probably all very versatile, and it's probably what the safety valve is in regards to the bomb squad and how they play that. I think Wiese, obviously his first game back after after his red card at Leicester for the last game of the season, which I was at that game, that was quite funny. But first game back, considering he hasn't played, he was excellent, constantly got over gain line, and that's what was really key for South Africa's success in attack, not just him getting over the gain line, all their players getting over the gain line. It makes such a difference for players getting over the gain line and then just giving it to players that utilise, you know, a defence that's scrambling a little bit. There were 2 or 3 times where I was like, you know, got over the gain line, and I literally yelled at the TV, it's Sacha time, and then the scrum half just, what? And he just gives it to Sacha and he's gone. So, in summary, Wiese, very, very good game. Really made a big difference. And he made quite a lot of good tackles as well. So, love to see it from him. Again, Mackenzie, I say this every week, he's really playing really, really well at 10. I know one of you's commented that, you know, maybe New Zealand should be playing Barrett at 10 and playing Mackenzie at 15. I don't think so. I think Mackenzie at 10 is excellent. I think he's playing really, really well. I keep starting him there. This New Zealand team is getting better week on week. From last week, from the week before, I felt like there was a downgrade and then we went up. We've had improvements for the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So we're seeing improvement, and I definitely think New Zealand were a lot more competitive today than a lot of people thought they would be. So that's good. I think Blackadder, good, very good game, all over the place, running with the ball as well. He should have passed that ball out on the outside. The winger was there for the opportunity early in the first half. That could have been another try to New Zealand. He didn't pass it, and that got caught up. One small mistake from a very good performance from him. Frans, tight head prop. Interesting setup he has for scrums. I would always think as a tight head prop, you'd want to have I'm looking from a bird's eye view here, you'd want your legs straight like this, so that when you have the hooker and the loose head coming into you, you're taking the engagement straight onto yourself on 2 steady legs. He actually has his legs more like this. Super weird. And maybe it's just because he's unworldly strong, so he can just kind of like take that. And then once he's taken the first hit from like the prop and the hooker, he's got a back leg to then drive forward and go forward. I don't know. It's a bit weird. And whenever I've seen props set up like that before, especially like I'm talking just tight head props here, they usually get dominated. But I think Frans had a very good game. I think he didn't get dominated in the scrum. In fact, if anything, he was the dominant one on his side for sure. So that was interesting, something to keep an eye on in terms of scrummaging technique. I'm going to try and work that out over the coming weeks and see how that gives you an advantage and think about it from like a physics point of view. South Africa, they knocked the ball on quite a lot in attack, I felt today. There were a lot of mistakes that New Zealand had to take advantage of. I think it was why New Zealand scored 27 points today. I believe it was 27, if I got that wrong, apologies. They scored more points than you would have thought they would have done today. That's the important thing. So, yeah, there are a lot of mistakes, I think, for both teams. The penalties for New Zealand and the knock-ons for South Africa. I've commented on this before. South Africa's scrum half situation at the moment is not good. I think Reinach was pretty good. He was okay. He was serviceable. He got the ball out quickly and he got the ball out quick enough for attacks to be set up. But he wasn't like difference making. You would have liked to have seen him. I think there were opportunities there to poach on some of the rucks in terms of just like having a break and going. Maybe it's not in his game. Maybe he's told not to do that. Maybe he's told to give the ball to Sacha as many times as possible. All are feasible. Graham Williams, I'm not so sure about. He stutters, he waits, he slows the ball down. And, you know, I don't think South Africa won in the end because of him, even though he scored the try at the end. You know, it wasn't him being a difference maker and allowing the counter-attacks. The counter-attacks all came off of New Zealand basically kicking ball away and taking the opportunities. It wasn't South Africa building phases off of quick ball. That just wasn't there for them. And yeah, I mean, that's it for my notes. Again, in summary, I think New Zealand threw the game away. They had every opportunity to win it. They were ahead by a lot. And they let the game come to them instead of them go and taking the game by the scruff of the neck and just dominating it to the very last. So I think they'll look at that. I think they'll be kicking themselves a little bit. Again, Mike Borthwick learned against Scotland. I think Razor's going to learn against South Africa. He's going to learn not to do that again in the future. And I think that's what we're seeing in these first few games of Razor. He's learning the differences between international and domestic. I'm still a believer. Still think he's the right man for the job. I'm seeing some play in New Zealand here that's really good. last week as well. A lot of positives today. You know, you saw preparation, Geordie Barrett with the interception, that was really good. You saw cohesiveness, quickness, McKenzie bossing attacks. You saw a forward pack that I think was more competitive at the scrum than they've been in the past. I don't think they lost their line out all day. I might be wrong in that, but I haven't recorded one. They might have done, correct me. They didn't lose one of their own scrums. They won every one of their own scrums. So things are tightening up. You know, you're seeing a little bit of a difference here compared to when Razor first took over. And I think it's all positive, bro. I think maybe my prediction of New Zealand winning the Rugby Championship is probably out the window. But you're seeing a steady increase in performances, getting better. And it's interesting to see what happens next week. I think, you know, any other situation, you're probably looking at next week and you're thinking South Africa now have their homework on New Zealand. And they'll probably, I think, you know, a lot of people will think South Africa will put New Zealand away next week, no problems. How New Zealand adapt, how they play differently, will be very interesting. We saw with the first Argentina game how they came back for the second Argentina game. It's Argentina. It's not South Africa. South Africa will adapt. South Africa will be better than the first time round. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to make any predictions as of yet. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the game wherever you're watching.